We can go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for coming out, muy buenas tardes, to this important topic that we want to pay some attention to. I'm Laura Conover, the Pima County Attorney, and I am pleased to be here also with our Chair of the Board of Supervisors, Adelita Grijalva. We want to speak for just a few minutes today, and then we're happy to answer questions. But we want to talk about a very important United States Supreme Court case that came out last Friday under the name Grants Pass. That Supreme Court case overturned all of the lower court cases before it, all of the localities that had been looking at the issue of open-air homelessness, and in particular, where bed space is available and where it's not available. And that's the pivotal question that was before the court, was where we know as a community that we are out of bed space and we cannot offer bed space. The United States Supreme Court reversed earlier decisions and said, nevertheless, a person caught sleeping outside could be considered to have intentionally be trespassing, even where we know we don't have the services in place to support them. Let me make a very clear point here at the outset, and that's accountability. As we always have, and as we will continue to do, where there is evidence of harm, where there is evidence of aggressive or assaultive behavior, where there is evidence of property damage and criminal damage, we will hold people accountable for the harm that they are causing. And so there should be no confusion based on this court decision as if that wasn't happening before, and as if it weren't happening now, and as if it won't happen in the future. Where harm is occurring, law enforcement responds to that, and we hold them accountable at the Pima County Attorney's Office. If misdemeanor conduct is occurring, criminal level trespass, endangerment, lower level assault, lower level theft, criminal damage, in the city limits, those cases go by TPD to the city court and are prosecuted by the city prosecutor. In unincorporated Pima County, it's our office at the Pima County Attorney's Office, and all felony level behavior falls to our office as well. But this decision by the United States Supreme Court to take open-air homelessness into a whole other arena is unacceptable for a number of reasons. First of all, it's false to suggest that we can arrest our way out of the problem of homelessness, that we can arrest our way out of substance use disorder illnesses and mental health. And it's demoralizing for our law enforcement out on the street to arrest someone based on these activities and to be immediately released by the jail and immediately released at initial appearances by judges, because the jail is not a hospital. And these people won't be held account and won't be held and detained for being caught sleeping outside. It's also completely unfunded. It's not as if a single dollar is attached by this United States Supreme Court decision to fund our limited and precious resources here in our county by both law enforcement and in my office to go in search of people who are caught sleeping and who have no other place to go out in this 105-degree heat. And last but not least, it's a distraction from all of the collaborative efforts going on city and county-wide to actually and properly and medically and behaviorally address the root causes of open-air homelessness that we must remain so very focused on. These collaborative efforts that have gone on countywide are starting to see some results. The number of people living out in open-air homelessness in our community is ticking down, and even more so, the number of opioid overdose deaths is going down in a marked way. This is the progress we have to stay focused on and not distracted from. And now let me be clear. because I'm not any less frustrated or disappointed by the Supreme Court's decision and by who's been put on the court and to do what with for 3.5 years in office now, constantly responding to completely out of touch decisions from this court. I'll say that this decision in Grants Pass is wrong. I want to be very, very clear. It's wrong from a moral and ethical and humane standpoint. As a community, we will not dehumanize people. We will not let COVID and the crime spike and open-air homelessness and fentanyl crossing into our community. We will not let us step away from the core values who make up who we are. And so while the Supreme Court might be willing to tolerate cruelty, our community will not. Chair?
Thank you. Thank you all again for being here. I want to make one thing very clear. We cannot arrest our way out of a problem facing our community members and many other communities across the nation. Being unhoused is not a crime. Locally, Pima County struggles with affordable housing availability and the necessary funding to reduce and eliminate acute and chronic homelessness. With that said, I'm pleased that Pima County, we have a long-standing policy to provide assistance and resources to those who find shelter in an encampment and work to find relocations before requiring people to leave an area. The Supreme Court's ruling will not affect our efforts to continue seeking humane and just ways to work with individuals facing this issue. This begins with investments in policies that prevent homelessness, policies that increase housing people can afford, increase housing stock in Pima County, and seeking alternatives to incarceration where suitable, supporting victims and fostering inclusivity and equity. Thank you to all the partners in this work, like nonprofits, other jurisdictions like the City of Tucson, and our community, for which these efforts to compassionately work with neighbors to find solutions to this issue. The key is prevention. It's important to understand that this being unhoused is not a crime. And what the Supreme Court wants us to do in gathering people that have no other options and put them in a jail, that there is no capacity anywhere in our nation where we can fill our legal system with people that are being arrested because they're sleeping outside. Thank you. And now I think we're open to taking questions. And we also have county staff in the back that can speak to some of the specific programs if you have questions about those. Yes?
It was said that there aren't enough beds. What is the county's estimate in terms of bed to unhoused folk ratio?
Do we have that data? It fluctuates literally daily. And so some organizations have capacity, like Primavera has capacity, Salvation Army might have capacity, we have hotels that have capacity, but it fluctuates on a daily basis. Is that correct? And this is Jen Darling. Do you want to come up and speak really quick? I know she's very excited for me to just pull her right up here. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jen Darland. I'm the director of the Office of Housing Opportunities and Homeless Solutions. The preliminary estimate for the latest point in time count from 2024 estimates that a total of a little over 1,200 people were experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and the Grants Pass decision would implicate those individuals who are living in unsheltered settings. At present, our shelter inventory for available beds, and that's of those beds that we know about that participate with our Continuum of Care or HUD-funded programs, we know that there are just a little bit shy of about 800 beds that are made available. But that, to the chair's point, that fluctuates on a nightly basis, and each shelter is run independently with its own operating rules and requirements for participation of utilization of that bed.
Any other questions? Yes.
Is there a ready source for someone like myself to find out who is providing the treatment and housing alternatives for the population?
Yes. Do you want to list the website? Or do you want? No. We have the Pima County website.
So Pima County has a webpage. If you were to look for the Office of Housing Opportunities and Homeless Solutions. On that page are links to both county-run programming for people who are vulnerable or experiencing homelessness, as well as links to community organizations and agencies that are also working in service of our unhoused neighbors.
You know, there's always ample time and opportunity to repeat as well that we've added the 988 system. Again, Pima County has been lucky for over a decade now of having a crisis response center and a crisis line, but it was, the full 7-digit number. But that meant that our line was ready to just convert immediately to 988. And that's where you're looking at a behavioral health crisis, and you're not looking for a law enforcement response, you're looking for someone to help another human being. The City of Tucson has also launched 311, which I think it expands even more on information when it's non-emergency, but you're looking for the kinds of services and support that we're discussing now. And the more we stretch into that realm, the better the results are, because we all know that this is about prevention. And the grants pass decision is so far on the back reactive side that's how we know it's not results oriented. We have to stay focused on prevention and services.
And I also think it's noteworthy that it's an alarming increase in the number of families and children that are finding themselves in this situation. So when people are talking about, let's get tough on, people who are unhoused, we're talking about our most vulnerable populations, people who have been pushed out of affordable housing or don't have the resources, and they're born into poverty. And we have to really address those issues with programs to prevent. But, we've relied very heavily on our schools, and it's now during these times in the summer where you really see the impact of how so many of our younger children are dealing with this issue. So we need to provide more support. And there's no community that's doing everything perfect, but I do think Pima County is working really hard to do as much as we can to provide supports and services.
I've read that other cities are trying a variety of experiments with tiny homes and trailers and a variety of other kinds of ways to help people have a place to get in and out of the weather. Is Tucson attempting anything like that?
You can talk in a minute.
Yeah, I can think of 3 entities and 3 developments right now just off of the top of my head. I know that, I have one website memorized, which is IAMU 360. And that's just one that I'm familiar with, but there are multiple versions of this going on. And Tucson, and trying to get some urban infill on that is a good community to be trying that.
The city of Tucson is converting several locations into affordable housing. Pima County just recently, over the last 2 years, dedicated $10 million to housing and will have very shortly 1,000 homes. So I think what we're trying to do is a little bit different. Some of the zoning, it depends on the neighborhoods, it depends on where it fits, but I do think that we're both the city of Tucson and Pima County are trying to be flexible with looking at different configurations for certain lots. Some of the policies and criteria that we created were a little restrictive. I think both of us are working towards trying to come up with a solution that fits the neighborhood that we're talking about.
Thank you all very much for being here.
And we're available individually if anyone wants to talk. Thank you.